Welcome back to another week at DroneDJ. This week's top news, we've got DJI's Mavic 3 Fly More combo with the RC Pro controller, but it's only available in China from December 20th. Sony, finally, the long-awaited Sony Airpeak is now available for pre-order with the shipping starting on December 24th. We also have a new FPV drone, 360. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And the last piece of news is on EHang with their flagship drone taxi starting the sightseeing test flights in Bali. Those are the four pieces of our top news this week. Kirk, I guess let's start with DJI's Mavic 3 Fly More combo. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I guess there's been a lot of maybe not so happy customers with the new controller not being included in a bundle or even being shipped, and give it the DJI to kind of come up and say like, yeah, we want to make sure our customers are happy, and we're going to add a Fly More combo with the RC Pro controller, although it's only available in China, which is problematic for the rest of the world who wants one. Since you can't get one. Now, I've not used the RC Pro or the smartphone controller. I know that the RC Pro is way better because it says Pro in the name, obviously. But you've used both of them, so can you explain like why this is way more coveted than the other controller?
I like the user experience from RC Pro. I mean, RC Pro is just the updated version of the DJI Smart Controller, right? So especially here in Canada when it's cold in the winter, if you can speed up your setup time even by a minute, it's golden. And with the RC Pro or the Smart Controller, because it's built-in screen with the actual controller. So you don't have to take extra time to connect your phone or connect your tablet. And just the ergonomic of it, I really like the feel of it, and I really like the brightness of the screen, the overall user experience. Personally, I love the Smart Controller and the RC Pro controller. The problem, however, is, I mean, we have to have both. We have to have the regular controller and the Smart Controller, because the Smart Controller is entirely DJI. If you want to use third-party flight apps, like Litchi, like Pix4D, Drone Deploy, anything, you'd have to go back to the regular controller, so you can install those apps on your phone or your tablet device in order to use them. But last week we were actually surveying a property with just doing a preliminary survey with the Mavic 2 Pro. Pix4D and Drone Deploy neither worked out. Drone Deploy wouldn't even start on the Mavic 2 Pro last week. I'm not sure why. And Pix4D came back with half of the pictures soft out of focus. So we had to use. So DJI does have the pilot app, which used to be only on their enterprise drones, is now available on the regular prosumer drones, the private edition, PE edition, and it worked like a charm. So I'm not sure what's going on. We're gonna go back to the property again next week, and then try again with the third-party apps. I mean, there was always the suspicion. My tech team always said, they have a bad feeling about third-party apps with the DJI controller. So we'll see, what happens. Either it's just a firmware issue, or if there's some kind of API issue with third-party apps. But essentially, is if you want to, if you need to use any third-party apps, then you won't be able to do those on the Smart Controller. But if you're just using it for cinematic, for video, for photography, like I said, personally, I love the Smart Controller for the usability.
Yeah, so they've added in this new Fly More combo, of course, only in China. I think we both hope that this comes to other markets, especially, in the Western world. So
yeah, so this is the official on DJI forum posted by DJI support, saying that it will be available in China region from December 20th. What's also interesting is they said they will compensate these customers with DJI credit and coupons, basically the ones who bought the RC Pro controller earlier. But people are asking, is that only for people who bought from the DJI platform? Does it count for people who bought from different retail shops in like B&H, Adorama, or any of the local retail shops? We still don't know at this point. So I guess we shall see.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, someone's going to get that question answered sometime. So
Yes, and we are planning for a Mavic 3, update topic before the holiday season. So the 1 month update. What
yep.
do we know? Because
There's
so
been a
far,
lot,
yeah,
a lot of
there's a
changes.
lot.
Yeah.
Moving on. So next we have Sony Airpeak. I have to say this has been a really long awaited drone. I first heard about it at least a year ago, if not more, about Sony, planning for their Airpeak for the pro market. And then earlier this year, I also heard from Sony about trying to send it to partners to test the unit, but that was the last I heard until we saw last week of basically the official announcement. What's interesting is the official announcement didn't come from Sony. It came from the online retail shops, right? The B&H, Adorama, and also from Drone Nerds.
Yeah, like we haven't seen anything official from Sony. It is on their website, but there's really very little detail other than if you find it on B&H or other sites, you can pre-order it, and then they're going to start shipping on the 24th. I guess you get a shipping tracking number for Christmas. I guess that would be great if you're buying one of these. The interesting thing also is that it's not 100% Sony. The gimbal is being outsourced
Gramsci.
by Gramsci.
It's a third-party gimbal.
They're outsourcing it to third party, which is interesting. Of course, this is their first drone, so maybe they don't want to tackle on the gimbal right away. They want to focus on the drone part. I guess that could save R&D for them.
But the drone looks like the original Matrix 100 to me.
It doesn't look. It's definitely not design heavy. They've definitely done form of a function.
No, if you look at the arms, and the main body, it really looks like the original Matrix 100, which was sort of an open source platform that was allowing people to do modifications.
Okay.
What I do like is I like the retractable landing gear. So the landing gear does go up. Let me see from
you don't have that weird phantom thing with the legs kind of just sitting there.
Correct. However, with the landing gear going up, it's not a 360 pan from the gimbal, from the camera control. And I suspect because it's hardwired, because the cable between the gimbal and the airframe there's some kind of cable hardwired. Like on the old Inspire 1, right? You can only pan 350. And then you have to pan all the way back. So that's the same thing with the Airpeak.
Yeah, so I looked into the drone, like that's the drone. So the gimbal, like size of what cameras you can put on it. Of course, Sony's gonna advertise their A series of DSLR, mirrorless cameras.
Yes, if we look at from Gramsci, this is the Gramsci T3, and even from Gramsci official website, it's got the Sony A7R on it.
And their compatibility for other cameras is really, really bad. Like they're showing them like, oh, you can put the 6D Mark 1 and 2 on them. Like the 6D hasn't been a flagship. 6D's never been a flagship. Like I don't even use that. I know very few people who use that camera other than for in the space industry, remote cameras, 100 feet away from a rocket. Who cares if it gets blown up? But I did look into the specs of what you can put on there. You can put the R5 on there. You can put the what was the what did I say, the Nikon camera? You can put the Z7 can go on there as well. Sadly, the R3 is not going to fit. It's a little too long to fit on that camera. So that's not going to be a thing. I'm assuming also with the I think it's the Z9 is their new flagship, that probably won't fit either. Right. But the smaller DSLR cameras that are phenomenal video cameras.
I have to say, I mean, we got the A7R years ago. A7R, I believe it was the second generation. And the reason we got it back then was actually on our free fly drone with the Mavic M5 was because it's mirrorless. And when we do industrial inspections, we needed a zoom, and we needed I believe at least a 30 times zoom. So with a mirrorless camera, when you put a zoom lens on, the form factor change. So the shift for the center of gravity is very minimal. Because when you put a zoom lens and the camera on the drone, right, and if you shift the center of gravity, then that's offsetting the center of gravity of your gimbal, and and essentially your airframe as well, which was making it difficult. And imagine once you zoom 30%, like any minor vibration, it gets magnified tremendously on the actual image. So if you're trying to inspect, let's say on the hydro tower, you're trying to see a 2-inch bolt on there to see if it's rusted, then it's very difficult if you have any minor vibration on it. So that's why we went with A7R. It was definitely, I have to say it's definitely a good choice. But I am a little disappointed on, looking at this Sony Airpeak, is how much of that is Sony.
Yeah, that is a great question. How much of it is really Sony putting in the R&D and making their own? Of course, it's their first one, so hopefully we'll see it now, iterations on the S2 or something like that. But I mean, yeah, yeah.
I'm still waiting to see official announcements from Sony. We still haven't seen much, and also even in terms of the specification, the technical specs on the Airpeak. I was even looking up information on the battery. So let's see, battery section. Where is the battery section? Right there, it doesn't even say the capacity or energy rating for the battery. No amperage information. And if I go to, let's say, Drone Nerds, where's Drone Nerds? Drone Nerds even sell the actual Sony Airpeak battery, and they're same thing. Description. There's virtually no description. Additional information. Weight is at 1 pound. Is at 1 kilo. We don't know. And no capacity, no amperage, no energy rating information at all.
It's the weight of one S1 battery. That's the weight of it. That's a pretty important detail to have, like what's the battery details like. I mean, can you take?
Yeah, because if you know the battery capacity and you factor in the weight of the drone and the flight time, then you can actually calculate a lot of the backend information on the drone, which at this point we don't know, and there's also no controller information. I'm trying to even see a controller picture. I couldn't even find a controller picture. We don't even know. No, is it one controller? Is it one controller? Oh, there's the controller.
There's the controller. Yeah.
There is a controller information. So is it one controller for both the drone and the camera? Because if you go with a Pro Team and you have the pen option on the camera, so if you have 3-axis control, then one controller is not that user friendly. You really need 2 controllers and one separate person controlling, the camera. Like on the Inspire, you can get the Pro combo, right, with 2 controllers.
If you look at Grammy's page, they even have a controller for their gimbal. So
right.
Yeah.
And there's some kind of Airpeak Plus for the cloud service, which again we don't have much information from. I have to say, some of my pilots were really looking forward for the Sony Airpeak, especially for the ones who do a little more pro video and cinematography. They were really hoping to have everything in the Sony ecosystem. Just like now with DJI, you can almost have a drone with everything from DJI ecosystem. So they were really hoping to have the gimbal, the camera, the drone, the control system, everything from Sony. But again, looking at this, it just seems like a lot of updated or repackaged third-party items.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that hits it on the head. Pretty much what it is.
I did come across one YouTube video that's in Japanese of someone actually unboxing the Airpeak and taking it for flight in Japan. So I'm trying to decipher that to get a little more information, because it was really 2 very long videos of someone actually setting it up. Basically, I'm interested in getting our hands on one, trying it out, and see how it actually performs.
Another interesting thing I haven't looked is the cameras on the onboard cameras. What did they do? And
FPV. There's the FPV camera, which is your first person view. Let's see, there we go. The FPV camera right there.
Okay, they do have the FPV camera details on there at least. I was looking to see like what type of details does that do, and if do you have to have the gimbal to have, I'm assuming this is for professionals. They're going to have the gimbal and they're going to have their own cameras on there.
Yeah.
But if you don't, or if there's an issue, can you recover with some sort
That's
of
the
onboard camera?
FPV camera.
Yeah.
I mean, similar to Inspire 2 with the FPV camera. And there's also vision sensors. So right now they're only disclosing information on the sensors, which helps to detect obstacle detection essentially. And the avoidance, there isn't any information on it. But I suspect if they have the hardware available, to detect the obstacles, then through software they can probably program the flight controller to do the avoidance. But again, no information at this point on more details on the app, how it works, capabilities. We still don't know yet.
Yep. So yeah,
so I guess we shall wait and see.
We will wait and see. If you want to buy blind, pretty much, you can do it on any of the third-party retailers.
I mean, I do have to say it's almost
really,
$9,000. It's almost $9,000, right? And if we compare it to a similar drone, which would be the Free Fly, Astro, and the Free Fly Astro, I believe the base kit starts from 12,500, and the payload capacity is only 1.5 kilos, versus the Airpeak is 2.5 kilos. So it's definitely more payload capable than the Astro, and the price is 2/3 the price of the Astro. So there's definitely, I mean, it's definitely an interesting product in terms of just being competitive, with the other similar drones in the market.
Yeah, the price does seem a little bit more
competitive
with everything. So that would be interesting to see when more detail comes out, if it's actually worth that price dip.
Now we also have the Pavo360, which looks like a new FPV drone that has 360 capability at a price tag of just $489, so just shy of $500. Personally, I'm very interested in this one. I'm thinking about getting one for Christmas.
Yeah. It's like, who doesn't love a 360 who doesn't love 360 cameras? Like, one, and then throw it on a drone, which I mean you could do before with FPV drones, if you build your own, but something custom built like that, like, come on, like, who doesn't love it? Like, it's great.
Do you play VR, Kirk?
I do not. I've done it with friends a few times, but I don't have one myself. I run all Mac, so I don't have an actual PC that can run it.
Right. So I have the Vive, and I also have the Oculus. I like playing the workout games, like I love Beat Saber. I love doing the workout games on VR, but I can't do if I try to play any of the single person shooter games, like in my office, all my tech guys play the single shooter. And I think the new one they got on the Oculus is the Resident Evil 4, the remastered one, which is the new popular one here in my office. But I have to say, it makes me dizzy. Like, I try 5 minutes of any single shooter game, it just makes me dizzy. And I find it's the same thing with the FPV goggles. Doesn't matter if it's a DJI one or the regular FPV goggles. I'm okay with it if I fly in big open space, but if fly any of the FPV racing, again, it makes me dizzy.
Watching that makes me a little sick. Not gonna, like, just even watching it is like, oh god, I don't know how you can watch that and do that. That's insane. Yeah.
So from my team, it's half-half. Half of the guys love it, half of the guys hate it. It's really a love and hate relationship. But I do like, especially flying in tight spaces, flying around the trees. I like on this Pavo360, I like the propellers are hidden. However, I am a little suspicious, because let's see, if we go down to the specs, it's 55 grams.
It's extremely light.
Extremely. That's super micro. So I'm wondering, is it mostly designed for indoor flights? What happens if a little gust of wind come?
Well, and it is quite small. I mean, we're talking about 1.5 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches, pretty much. So, like, it's definitely not large.
No, it's just anytime I look at the super micro drones, it just reminds me of I don't know if you remember those little Hubsan drones, years ago.
Yeah, years ago. I think I did have one, like, a long time ago.
And they're just gone with the wind. You take them outside for any wind, they're just gone with the wind.
Yeah, they're not gonna work. But let's be honest. Okay, it has a landing gear though.
Right.
Which I
Yeah,
saw that pop up in the video, and I'm like, that's awesome. That's just one little gear that pops out so you don't hit that the bottom element of the 360 camera on the ground. Like, it's pretty ingenious to have that in there. And this looks almost pretty well 3D printed.
Yeah.
Some of the close-up photos, you can see that it's definitely 3D printed.
Well, I'm definitely going to get one, and so I'll let you know. After the holidays, I'll let you know if it survived.
Full scale review. I think we need a full scale review of it.
Definitely. Last piece of news for this week is EHang sightseeing test flights in Bali. I have to say, I've been following EHang news, ever since even before they went public, ever since the company came out. The drone itself looks interesting, and even last week when we were talking about the flying car from Renault, right? I was commenting on the open blaze about the propellers, but at least with EHang, you can see the propellers are a little further from the actual cabin of the drone, and it seems fairly protected.
Yeah.
Essentially, this is no different than getting on a helicopter. Like if I go to Niagara Falls and getting on the helicopter tour, this really isn't that much different.
Yeah, I don't know what type of helicopters you have up there, but down here in when I go down to Florida for rocket launch stuff, you can do helicopter tours, and those are the sketchiest helicopters. It's like you're getting onto a lawnmower with not, you take the doors off too for photos, like, oh, so sketchy. So I wonder how this will if these are elegant, if these are kind of like it works. Which ones they are.
I'm definitely interested in at least seeing the inside, at least trying one.
Yeah.
I know they are doing some test flights here in Canada, but in very, very remote region, 4 hours north of Quebec City. So that's almost in the middle of nowhere. I'm not sure if do you know down in States if they're doing any flights down in States?
I haven't seen any. No, I have not. Of EHang, I haven't. No.
Because they are a publicly traded company on NASDAQ, so they actually went public from States. It'll be interesting to see actual flights, in North America with their VTOL taxi drones.
Yeah, and I wonder, this is kind of like where's their market going to go? Because I've always seen eVTOLs as taxis, like, right?
Yeah.
And as sightseeing, kind of like I guess like you don't need a pilot type of like
who controls, that's the question. Yeah, if you don't need a pilot.
Yeah, do you need a pilot? Do you not need a pilot? Is it controlled by the ground? Is it completely autonomous, like by itself? That would be interesting to see as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say, from just knowing, taking helicopter tours, or also when we hire just helicopters for regular filming, for just general aerial filming, the pilot does come in super handy because that pilot knows the area, they know what's around. I remember, filming at occasions with helicopters, and the pilot would actually tell me, hey, there's, that's an interesting shot, that's a good location, that's a good timing. And same thing with taking tours. It is as much about the vehicle or the craft you're in as about the pilot who's actually flying it, and that experience. So I'm definitely interested to see more details from the drone. So who's in control? Is it a pre-programmed flight path? Is there some kind of automated computer programming that tells you all about the area, right?
Yeah, is there an emergency takeover control, like stick or something, or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's all important details, I think.
Definitely. And it's interesting to see, because if you really follow EHang, you will see that majority of their flights, like actual operational flights, are not in North America, right? I believe when they first started, it was a lot of especially a lot of the news, PR news came about their Dubai operations, and now also in Bali. So it's definitely outside of the so-called developed countries. And I wonder if that's because restrictions on
I bet regulations are much looser over there. Like, just either they're not existent, or they're much more progressive on how they're going to handle drones. Here in the States, I was always like, it's crazy trying to get someone approved. So
Yeah, same thing in Canada. It's very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess in Canada, because we have so many northern remote countries, that's vast land in the middle of nowhere. So
Yeah.
there's definitely more testing here in Canada.
Yep.
But the moment you enter urban space, it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the roundup of this week's news at DroneDJ, and I will see you back here next Wednesday. And also starting from next week, we're going to add a special topic every week. It seems like we're running out of time to cover, for example, the Mavic 3 was being new since 1 month of release, and the Sony Airpeak, we definitely want to dive a little deeper into the specifications and user case as well. So stay tuned. We'll see you back here next week.